Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our fifth session of Youth Empowerment Series. My name is Rijin, and I'm here today with my co-hosts Jessenia, Cynthia, and Hunyah. We'll be there every week, Wednesdays from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., doing these amazing sessions just for you guys. Today, we're joined by the one and only, the amazing Sarah Bowers-Peters, the program coordinator for Crime Stoppers Guelph, Wellington. So please, everyone, give an amazing warm welcome. All right. So let's start today with today's topic, cybercrime and security. As we progress over time, technology is becoming more advanced day by day. This means now there could be more crimes than ever, more identity thefts, transaction frauds, hacking, crimes that put the nation's security at risk, but more than that, crimes that put our privacy and life at peril. So today we'll dive more in depth, exploring the key problems in the digital world and what we can do to be safer. A special guest will talk about Crime Stoppers and how all these issues tie into the work they do. Also, guys, the recording of our previous session is now posted on our YouTube channel. So please be sure to follow us there as well as other social media platforms to stay up to date. So today's agenda. So we'll talk about cybercrime first. We'll talk about what kind of cybercrimes are there. We'll talk about technology, how technology has evolved, something so basic to something so advanced, and how along with that process, it has brought so many other cyber crimes, right? And then we'll talk about Crime Stoppers, and that's where a special guest will take over, and she'll provide her insights in the digital world. And then obviously from our last session, we had a lot of questions. So just for that, we have a separate Q&A session so that if you do have any questions, you can directly ask Sarah for any of those questions. But please be free to ask any questions to the chat. And then we'll talk about cyberbullying, which is really important when we talk about cyber crimes, because cyberbullying essentially is obviously bullying someone through online platforms. So I feel like that is something that we should all talk about, as well as some cool information, I guess, that we should all be aware of. And then to end it off, we'll talk about some safety tips and how we can all be safe when browsing online. So before I pass it on, I would like to start a session with a quick YouTube video of how this all began, how technology has progressed over time, how we changed over time. So that's crazy, right? A lot has changed in terms of technology. Now we have new ways of banking, communicating, and shopping. With all this, we're also more prone to more people stealing money online, taking our personal information for various reasons, and many more. So, what do you guys think of it? Did anything stand out that you believe technology has made easier in our lives, but at the same time has caused other issues? Just give me some examples.
Yeah, and you guys can feel free to unmute or type in the chat, whatever is easier. But I think just to kick it off, I guess one of the biggest ways that we've seen technology and how it's evolved and really helped us is through this past year in the pandemic. So many of the things that we've been able to do, whether it's connecting with family and friends abroad, attending school, universities, and even work, has all been because of technology. And the power it has to connect one another. But at the same time, there has been an increase in data breaches and cybersecurity issues within this past year as well. So I think it's really important to look at both sides of the spectrum and understand that, in 2021, technology and being able to use it and consume it is extremely important to stay up to date, but at the same time, doing your part and learning about all of the different types of ways that you can stay safe at the same time.
We have two questions from Noel in the Zoom call. So he just saw the video and the way that things have changed and everything has been replaced with tech. So he was wondering how we felt about that. And do we think that it's an issue that we've become more dependent on technology for everything?
I guess technology is really crucial for today, because it's it's used for everything online. Wherever we go, like for example, if you have to go shopping, we have to first Google for sales. So I feel like for those simple things, technology is always there to make our lives easier. But like I said, at the same time, personally, technology has made my life easy just because it's easy, but at the same time made me a lot lazier, I guess. In the I got much more lazy just because everything is around me now and it's more easy to access them. But at the same time, like I said, there are more opportunities for bad things to happen at the same time, manipulating us, to do certain things, misinformation, false propaganda. So I feel like those are some things that technology has, could do to us in the future, I believe has already done to us. So I feel like by replacing everything, has its own benefits, but at the same time, there are also chances that bad things could happen.
I have a comment on this. Often there's a lot of things that we see that over likes or with how many shares there are. It's not, everything's not always dependent on that as well. And plus there's so many fake apps that you don't know which one is real sometimes. So we also have that struggle as we have everything around technology.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So to continue on, as Rijin mentioned before, there are so many crimes digitally that can occur, and this can include a variety of different things, such as transaction frauds, which are essentially when someone takes your card information and makes a transaction without your permission. So that relates to banking, of course. So it's important to be careful where you put your card information. Oftentimes, fake emails and websites are the worst ways to be victimized by these frauds. Some of them could ask you for your name, SIN number, and they would even represent themselves as CRA or your phone plan company and promote various fake services influencing you to submit your information. So in cases like this, you might be contacted by a representative of organization that you think is reputable and something that you're used to, but in that case, they're just it's conducting fraud. So it's important to be careful of going on untrusted websites, because you could even get malicious softwares to be downloaded on your devices without your permission. And then from there, they could take away and locking your files and locking your information. So an example of this is really going on a different site that uses cookies. And a lot of the times that they'll ask you to accept their cookies, and without you even reading the information behind that and reading their privacy statements and policies, a lot of people, and majority, will just easily accept right away. But in accepting that, you're handing them over and giving them permission to basically take over and look at all of the information that may be stored on your laptop, or the information that you share with them, whether it's your telephone number, your home address, and all of these things. So definitely cybersecurity and the safety where it comes from there can also attribute and contribute to your personal safety as well, because there have been a lot of instances where any kind of breach of technology would then affect a person in real life, because they've now received your home address. And yeah, this is definitely something that's becoming more common as well.
I believe that this chart summarizes very well. So this is a chart from Statistics Canada from 2018. So keep in mind that it's 3 years back from now. So these numbers could have been increasing just because, like I said, technology is becoming more advanced day by day. So according to this chart, 48% have received fraudulent emails or other messages. 18.7 have been redirected to fraudulent websites asking for personal information. 11.4% have faced a virus or computer infection. But what is more shocking about it is that 57.3% of people, they've experienced one or more incidents listed below. Next slide. Yeah, and not only that, what is more shocking is that according to Cyber Solution, it's been written that $1 trillion were lost in the year of 2018 just on cybercrimes, and at least 0.5 billion records were stolen in 2018. So to put that into perspective, that is at least 158,727 stolen records per hour, 2,645 per minute, and 44 per second. Now that's crazy. And not only that, it was recorded that businesses have spent more than 14 billion in just prevention, detection, and recovery from cybersecurity incidents. Now, if take that all that money and think about if that contributed to the economy or the GDP, it really shows that cybercrimes, it really puts the entire nation at risk, and it affects a lot of businesses and it affects a lot of people's lives. And that is something that we young people should recognize and should take action towards, and because we have the voice to do so. Next slide. Yeah, so like I said, youth around the world, they're severely impacted by these cybercrimes, especially when youth are unaware of these cybercrimes when they're browsing online or when they don't have the correct support. So today, Sarah will talk about her role with the Crime Stoppers and how youth can be supported and involved. Like I said, she's a program coordinator for Crime Stoppers Guelph, Wellington. She also serves on the Ontario Association of Crime Stoppers Board of Directors and has been appointed to the Canadian Crime Stoppers Association as the communications chair. So welcome, Sarah.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so impressed with the stats in this presentation. It's great to see how you've broken it down and shown it at the local or from a local perspective with this presentation, but taking a global view of it. It's true. We also like to look at Crime Stoppers in relation to cybercrime, not just in the online transactions, but also how the internet and online communication are used to commit crimes, things like human trafficking and things like that. But I'll jump into the presentation if you'd like. All right, hopefully everyone can see that. Crime Stoppers and cyber safety. So yes, as mentioned, my name is Sarah. My first responsibility is to the Guelph Wellington program. I was elected to the Ontario Association, and having been appointed to the Canadian Crime Stoppers Association, it's been a great opportunity to look at how the Canadian view differs from the provincial view. And I know we may have viewers from across Canada, and I'm so excited to connect with you tonight. If you have any questions about anything that I'm discussing, feel free to reach me at the email address shown on the screen, sarah@csgw.tips. All right, so it's not a mystery, and most people are well aware of the fact that we've been spending more time online in this past year plus than ever before, whether it's school, work, a lot of us are working remotely, doing our studies online, connecting. It's the only way we can connect with a lot of our family and friends. So we do look at the positives, and exactly what that video said at the beginning. There's great advantages to having social media and internet connectivity. However, we know that not all these interactions are positive ones. There's a lot of talk about how this engagement impacts health and mental health, which is great because that's so important with what we're dealing with right now. However, there's been an increase in criminal activity as well, and not strictly with cybercrime, as you've mentioned, Rijin. It's also been a broad spectrum of crimes that have increased over this period of time. And what we're seeing specifically is that the ones the crimes that have online connection and that have also increased, we start with drugs. That seems to be quite prevalent. Harassment, so online bullying and engagements that are negative between people. Fraud, and I know you touched on that as well, as far as someone who is paying money for a good or a service and doesn't receive it. And that seems to be such a common one, like right down to the grassroots level where, you see something posted in a Facebook marketplace or a Kijiji and you want to purchase it, and you do that online transaction, and then you go to meet up with someone and they never show up. It's so easy to defraud someone of their money. Identity theft. I mean, we could do an entire presentation just on identity theft. It's the crime of the 21st century. It takes years, if not decades, for people to clear their names, remove debt that was incurred under their name, and to restore their credit rating, their reputation, all of that. So, you know, identity theft, because exactly what you were saying in your intro, with the accessibility of the online world and the communication that we engage with, we don't even realize how much content we put out there about ourselves. And we really need to look at that and reel it back in a bit to make sure that we're not putting too much out there and making it too easy for criminals to obtain that information about us. And as I mentioned previously, human trafficking, and that's another one that we could do an entire presentation on, but suffice it to say, for people who are maybe feeling vulnerable, if you're looking for a connection right now, it's very easy for someone who is lurking online to make that connection with you and start a grooming process where you become connected with them. You feel like they understand you. You have a real bond, and that quickly evolves into something much more sinister. Again, I could do a lot of talking about that, but I know we're here to talk about our cyber engagement here. A lot of people understand what Crime Stoppers is. Like they've got an idea when they see the brand or the logo, they're like, oh yeah, Crime Stoppers, but they don't understand how much we can help, especially in this day and age. First of all, I want to start with Crime Stoppers is not the police. That's one of the biggest misconceptions, is that people think that if you contact Crime Stoppers, you're talking to the police, and that is absolutely not the case. For us, we are a separate organization. We act as the middleman, or the having an arm's length relationship with our policing partners. The public comes to us with information about crime. So we get that information and we forward it to investigators. So that could be police, it could be investigative government agencies. The most important aspect, though, is that you never have to give your name or testify in court. And that's really important for people who don't have a confidence level in their policing service. They maybe have had a negative experience. It could be that you just don't want to tie up your life being a witness and testifying in court, which can take months or years. Maybe you don't want your neighbors to see there's a cruiser in the driveway or your car at the police detachment. There's a lot of reasons why people do not want to engage directly with police, and that's where Crime Stoppers comes in. We also offer cash rewards. This is how the program was built way back in 1976. So the idea is that if your information is used to obtain a warrant for an arrest and the person is arrested, you may be eligible for a cash reward of up to $2,000. And I must say, even though that sounds really attractive, a majority of our tipsters don't do it for the reward. They do it because they want to do the right thing to keep their community safe, and they want to unburden themselves, and they simply just want to get it over with. They just want to provide their information and move on. We really don't care who you are. We don't care what motivates you. The most important thing is that you want to do something to help keep your community safe. So how does it work? Well, there's two ways that you can reach most programs, and in some locations, there are three options. The first one is by phone, old school, pick up the phone and call someone, right? So 1-800-222-TIPS works across Canada. You can also, and you would actually speak to a live person. You would have like an opportunity to talk to someone. They would ask you questions, make sure they get the best possible information to forward to investigators. Another option is the web tip feature, and that's something that is done electronic or digitally through our websites. And this is on email communication. Again, I don't want to get too techie with the time that we have, but this is a portal on our websites. And this allows a tipster to come forward with information, type it into a template in our websites. And it's not based on your name, your email address. There's no attachment to a URL. It's strictly you providing information into a portal. And when you click submit on the form, a code is generated. That code is what you need to follow up to see if you get a reward, or if you have more information and you want to add it to your original tip submission. The third option for some programs is by your app. Not every program has this, so you maybe want to check with your local program and see if that's a feature that they offer. If not, I encourage you to either call or do a web tip feature. They're very safe. We really work hard to make sure our tipsters are kept safe and secure for that reason. Obviously, we wouldn't have anyone contacting us otherwise. So it's really important that we ensure their safety. So once we get that information, we sanitize it. And what that means is if someone were to say, you know, my neighbor, the person in the apartment next door, the person across the street, you know, is manufacturing drugs, it would be very important for us to take out any information that would indicate the tipster is in relative proximity to the individual they're reporting on. It could really put them in danger. So we sanitize it. We make sure there's no identifying information that could possibly link, you know, ourselves or the investigators to the person who's provided that information. Frankly, we never want to know who you are, and neither do our police or other investigative partners. It's really important for our viewers tonight to understand that if you do contact Crime Stoppers, do not ever tell the police that you've done this. We work really hard, as I mentioned, to keep you safe and to put securities in place that will not allow you to be identified. But it's really important that you do that too. Like, you know, don't connect with your friends the next day or go online and say, you're never going to believe what I did last night. I totally went to Crime Stoppers. That defeats the purpose of being anonymous, and anonymity is the cornerstone of our program. So finally, if we get to that place where the investigation has taken place and we are able to resolve a crime, the police will you know, do their due diligence. They don't just, you know, smash open a door and arrest someone. They have to do an investigation. They have to make sure that there is evidence to support the information they received in the tip. So if it is successful, you could receive a cash reward of up to $2,000. And again, you never have to testify in court or provide any identifying information, which is really attractive for a lot of people. The cycle that we use for Crime Stoppers is we work with our police partners, and they may come to us with a crime that needs to be resolved called a crime of the week. So it's kind of like a feature, a spotlight that we'll shine a light on. We also have people that will come to us with crime, and we will advise our police partners that it's happening. So they're not even aware of crime happening. They will find out from us because of our tipsters. But traditionally, we get a crime of the week feature. We then go to our media partners and we increase awareness about a crime committed within your community because of our media connections. And then because of that media outreach, we're able to connect with the public. And of course, that's the most important part, because it's the public that has the information that can come forward and solve crime. And this is a question that we're asked so many times. And I've had a number of people, back when we could meet in person in the old days, remember that? And people would say, you know, I don't hear a lot about Crime Stoppers cases that are solved. You know, we don't hear about it on the news. We're not seeing media releases about it. Well, we're not going to be specific about the cases that we help solve. And that's because we're really careful to preserve the anonymity of the people who give us the information. We don't know what information could identify a tipster. And the last thing we would want is to have someone injured or even killed because we disclosed that a case was solved as a result of a Crime Stoppers tip. So hopefully that makes sense. It is to protect our tipsters. Here's to give you an idea of the stats that we have across the province. So you can see, you know, recovered drugs, personal property, and cash, huge numbers there. We've cleared a tremendous number of cases across the province. And of course, you know, the number of arrests, you know, that speaks for itself. Those people would not be arrested and charged otherwise without the help of Crime Stoppers tipsters. So this is an opportunity for me to shamelessly plug the volunteer aspect of our program, but it's really important because Crime Stoppers is a community-based organization. It's community members that volunteer their time and talents, come together and support this program and really make it the success that it has been. So it's really important, and young people are invited to get involved with all the programs. You know, follow your local program. So I'm in Guelph, Wellington. It doesn't matter where you are, you're able to connect with your local program, find out what they do, see what their engagement is like. You could follow them online. A lot of them are active on social media. Check out their websites, see how you can volunteer if you want to give back to your community or just have a better understanding of how you're able to keep your community safe. So tonight, I'm here on behalf of the Ontario Association of Crime Stoppers, and I would strongly encourage you to follow us as the provincial body. Again, we're active on social media, and we do have a brand new website that we just launched earlier this year. I would encourage you to check it out. It's also a great resource. If you're not sure if you have a program in your area, go in and check it out, and it will show you where the various programs are, and you'll see which one is nearest to you. But we're really excited to have this opportunity on such a great platform. The easiest way to support Crime Stoppers, because a lot of people do want to know how they can help out, is to be involved, whether it's volunteering or sharing the message on social media, because the reach is so great on social media. A like, a comment, a follow, it means so much. So make sure you're sharing the message and helping keep you safe virtually as well as in reality. So that is kind of a nutshell of what we do. I'm happy to take questions, but I really want to say thank you again so much. If you have any other questions that you don't want to ask in this forum, feel free to email me, sarah@csgw.tips.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for those amazing insights on the digital world and how we can keep the community safe. And definitely, I think all of the things you mentioned through Crime Stoppers and getting involved, we really encourage and we echo that from you to get involved in the community and, help keep one another safe, because that's really our duty as, citizens and as our global community members. So thank you so much for that. And I think just to get into some of the questions, I'd like to kick it off. For a bit of a background about you and what inspired you to initially join Crime Stoppers and what motivates you to keep going.
I didn't expect that one. Okay. My background actually is journalism, and a million years ago when I was a journalist, I actually covered court and police. And that progression led to a career as a civilian in OPP. And this opportunity traditionally was held by a uniform member. So it would be a police officer, a sworn member. And, as things evolved and the change in responsibilities with frontline officers and civilian, they decided to make it a civilian responsibility. So I applied for it right away because I really felt it was a good fit for my skill set. And I've enjoyed it. I'm actually coming up 7 years this July. So it's been exciting to learn about, my local program. And then once I had that confidence level built up a little bit, to be elected to the provincial body and then to be appointed nationally. So, and learning so much and how things are different and yet entirely the same in all of our communities. But thank you for that question. I really appreciate that.
No, that's awesome to see that, you took something, I guess, that was an interest, but now it's kind of converted into giving back to the community as well and doing something for everyone. So yeah, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I mean, another question I had was just more about the Crime Stopper aspect. How do you know if the people who are reporting crimes are legitimate and are not just doing it for the cash reward?
Well, to be honest, it doesn't matter to us if someone is doing it for the cash reward, as long as, the information has to be legitimate for it to qualify for that reward. And as I mentioned, when this concept was created way back in 1976, the idea was to inspire the community to come forward with a cash incentive, because for the first case that was created around crimes, or that Crime Stoppers was created around, there was apathy. People did not want to help solve this homicide. It was a gas station, a convenience store robbery that went bad, and no one wanted to come forward with the information to solve that crime. So Detective Greg McAleese, who created the Crime Stoppers movement, said, you know what, we got to do something. So he actually offered a cash reward of $300, which I realize doesn't seem like a tremendous amount of money to come forward with information about a murder, but it would be like $1,000 today. So that might be a little more of an incentive for someone to bring that information forward. But you're absolutely right. We don't know who provides the tip. And I'll take you one further. Some people say, well, how do you know if it's legitimate information? We don't, and we don't investigate it. Every tip we get is forwarded to our police partner or investigative partner. It's up to them to make sure it's legitimate. So if someone were to say, oh, I'm going to call Crime Stoppers on Sarah, she's cooking meth in the basement, go ahead. You could put that tip in and the investigation would take place and they'd find out I'm really a very boring person. And there's no meth being cooked. Actually, most days nothing's being cooked. So there's nothing suspicious or sinister happening with me. And that would just be closed as, you know, an unsubstantiated tip, and there would be no reward. So hopefully that clarifies the motive behind tips.
Right. No, that makes sense. So then it's obviously not going out to anyone, only if it can be traced back and there is actual factual evidence. So
Absolutely. And the confidentiality is a huge part of it too, because some people think, well, I don't want to say anything because it'll be broadcast or shared. And as I mentioned, we don't talk about the cases that we have information on. We're never going to say we got a great drug tip from here, or that we're going to pursue information and provide it to police about that. It's really important not to do that. So confidentiality is as important as the anonymity piece.
So I want to know if you have any advice or a message for a witness to a cybercrime, or if anyone is experiencing it like themselves at the moment.
If you're witnessing it, like if you see it happening and you're not personally involved, absolutely come forward with it. If you're comfortable dealing directly with police, we always say to do that. If you don't, that's why we're here. Crime Stoppers is your option. It's really important because this type of crime that we're discussing tonight, it's so easy to victimize so many people in such a short period of time. So, you know, one person or one organization can create a tremendous amount of damage. If you yourself are a victim of crime, unfortunately, Crime Stoppers can't help you with that because you have to be anonymous. So you can't be anonymous if you're the victim of a crime. I would encourage you to come forward with the information. I know it's scary. And you may feel embarrassed. You may feel, you know, oh, I feel so stupid, or I feel foolish because, you know, I clicked on that, or I sent that information, or I agreed to do something. Just stop where you're at. Don't go any further and get some help, because there's always something that can be done. So don't get yourself too far down the road that you don't feel you can come back. There's absolutely services and supports for you to help get you out of a bind.
Thank you.
I have a question. Yes. My question is that what are the top cases that you receive in Crime Stoppers, like particularly, and also, like, was there any increase or decrease as emerging cybercrime cases during COVID, during the pandemic?
Good question. We didn't see trends, like not locally or provincially so much on the cybercrime end. It was more things related to, I would say, like domestic violence, sexual assault, trafficking, that type of thing. Because with everybody being locked down, oh, I should say that fraud. Yes, that would have been one that went up as well. But what we saw with people being locked down is that things were happening behind closed doors, right? And with people not being able to have contacts with supports, whether it was women in crisis or victim services, or even children going to school where they could connect with teachers and supports at school. Those were the types of things that we saw. The more interpersonal type crimes seem to take an increase. Now, that's not saying that, you know, a program in another area didn't or did see that same pattern. They maybe did experience an uptick in cybercrime. But just from the Guelph, Wellington, and the Ontario perspective, I would suggest it was more interpersonal type crimes that were increased because of the pandemic. Excellent question. Thank you.
We have a question from Noel in the Zoom call. What is a good way to tell a legitimate email or website from one that is a scam?
And that is so tough because they're getting so good. You know, a couple of years ago, you could tell because it looked like kindergarten cut and paste, right? Like the desktop publishing, the graphics were not on point at all. So you could easily say, yeah, no, like we're not touching that. It's so much harder today. I think the best thing to do when you get something like that is, and this is what I do myself, is just take a step back for a moment, look at the email address, look at the content of the email that has been sent, really pause and think, have I had interaction with this agency or this business? Like, is this something that I should be receiving right now? And even if it's something like a CRA, because the CRA scams are getting everybody, it's just terrible. But if it's something like that, you think, ooh, could be legitimate, reach out to an agency such as your local police service, because they actually do track if there are scams happening in your community. If you're not comfortable with that, you can also contact the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. And I normally have that website right on me, but I don't right now. If you just type in Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, they have great resources, and you can actually report scams that are happening in your community, because they do tend to go geographically, like they'll hit an area with a certain type of scam. Or reach out to your bank, your lending institution, whoever holds your credit card. Reach out to them and say, hey, I just got something about my credit card or my loan or what have you. Can you tell me if it's legit? So just don't panic. That's the big thing. They count on you freaking out and doing exactly what they're directing you to do. So just take a moment, evaluate it, and be calculated in how you proceed by reaching out to the appropriate agency or organization.
Yeah, and something like I like to do, as Sarah mentioned, definitely check out what email address it was that sent to you. And also another thing I like to do is basically search for that email on Google. So just like either type in their name of the email address or the contents or like the subject of that email and see if anybody else has experienced something similar, received something similar.
Great suggestions.
Is it okay if I ask one more question?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So you were all talking about things like scams and frauds and things like that. And I think that's kind of really interesting about talking like about all these different threats that exist in the cyber world, I guess. And it kind of got me thinking about like what other threats there are. So I just wanted to ask, like, have you seen any new cyber crimes or fraud, aside from like fraud and scams and things like that?
Last week, Crime Stoppers International had a cyber safety, like an international cyber safety seminar. It was only an hour long and they packed a lot of content in it. But what they were saying was that those are actually the ones that we're seeing predominantly would be your frauds, different levels of defrauding and identity theft, right? So being able to conduct transactions, purchase, get documents, obtain credit on behalf of someone else and then using it, of course. So yeah, I think that's a consistent theme that we're seeing right now.
Okay, thank you.
I also want to mention, if you are doing like a service that is online, personally, I've experienced this myself. So I have an online website because I am a graphic designer, and there is a form that a potential client could fill in and contact me through email. So I've received a scammer from that method as well. So someone would disguise themselves as a client and put in like their request, and then they'll say that they accidentally sent you a check that's like too much money and they need you to transfer them back the money into another account. So that is a very common scam, that basically they sent you a fake check with fake money, but you get it in your bank and you think that you actually received that amount. Whereas like the money that you're sending back is your actual money. So it's really hard to tell these days. How I found out, I basically like did the same thing I mentioned. I searched for it on Google and I found like tons of forums on like similar types of scams. And I was like, wow, I'm really glad that I felt that something was off and I actually looked into it.
And that's really great advice. If it doesn't pass like the sniff test, if it makes your intuition kind of, take note, that's a really good indication that something's off. So I'm so glad that you picked up on that before it went really bad for you.
Yeah, definitely. And we also have another question from our Facebook chat. From Samia, are there any initiatives being taken by Crime Stoppers or their affiliates to curtail hate crimes conducted via social media or the internet?
Excellent question. I actually handle the social media platforms for Ontario and Canada. And I can tell you, yes, we've been much more visible about hate crimes and reporting of hate crimes. It's really important that people understand that if you sit there and you say, well, it's a horrible thing, that's one thing, but you could really be the person who helps stop it by taking action. And that's what more people need to be doing right now. And because of everything I just explained about Crime Stoppers being anonymous and confidential, I hope people feel empowered to do that, that they can keep their neighbors safe, they can protect their family and friends, because that's what it's all about. It's community, and not taking action is really unacceptable.
Definitely. I guess just like another question that I have, did you find that you were enable or like a challenge to reach certain people, especially during COVID? Because I know like, I guess because we're social distancing, a lot of people won't be able to actually physically come to you and ask for help.
Yes, I think we've all really had to challenge, and pivot is the word I think we all use, right? It's been a pivot year. I used to do a lot of in-person presentations, which were great. It was nice to be able to, be in a school or be in the community and talk to people in person. However, when we realized it wasn't going to happen anytime soon, we made the switch over to the online presentation, much like what you guys are doing here tonight. And thank you so much again for this opportunity to reach so many people. But there's a plus there again about the technology end of it, being able to engage with people that we wouldn't be able to reach otherwise. So instead of just reaching, a couple of people at a school, or having something, especially where I live, winters are terrible. So we don't get to do a lot of engagement in the rural areas because people won't come out. They'll figure the highway will be closed or there'll be some kind of snowstorm. So we were actually able to do online presentations and workshops from January forward because anyone can, with a computer and an internet connection, is able to access. So it's been a great opportunity to reach people in a different way. And I would suggest that we're going to continue with it, because as much as I want to get back in person, I feel there's going to be an audience, an ongoing audience for this type of engagement. What do you guys think? Like, do you think this is something that you will continue to offer even when the pandemic's over?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just made it so much more easier to get that extended outreach that, we couldn't have in person. So of course, the face-to-face things are always nice. And I think for a small group, for sure, we would like to implement that as well. But, through this method, instead of just one city, we've been able to really expand our outreach across Canada. So yeah, I think we'll definitely continue with this. So thank you. I think we have another question coming in the chat. So it's just like global warming, technology will also pose a lot of risks in the future. So do you think as time progresses, education on cybersecurity and ways to be safe online should be a long-term priority?
Yes. And I think it should be a course.
Yeah.
I really do. And I think even cyber safety and like how we interact with each other on social media should be a course. I think we need to really do right by young people. And I mean, the folks I'm talking to, you guys have grown up with this, but even the younger generations coming up through, it's so easy to be exploited or to be approached in an online capacity, and you don't know who you're talking to. So we have to do our best as parents and older generations to train younger people through our mistakes with what has happened to us and what we've seen, those worst case scenarios, whether it's bullying or harassment or sexting or, like I say, grooming for human trafficking. We can prevent a lot of crimes when we start thinking like the criminal and being able to use those examples to teach young people. And we did an online session just a week ago locally with Guelph, Wellington. And I had a detective constable who works with the Internet Child Exploitation Unit as my guest speaker. And one of the things that he stressed was that it's the role of parents. It's part of parenting now. So, if anyone listening or if any of you decide someday that you want to be a parent, it's really something to consider, that you need to, it's not just about food and clothing and shelter. It's also about educating and protecting young people with their online engagement so that they don't end up in the deep end of the pool, so to speak.
100%. It's become such a normal part of life, just as clothing, food, shelter is definitely one of them is technology. So I think I would have loved to see when I was in high school, a course directly related to this, because I think that's something that the education system is definitely missing out on right now, and would be a great benefit because we learn about all these other skills, soft skills, but we always miss the mark on technology, which is the thing that we use for everything. So thank
Well,
you.
and people think it doesn't happen to them,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You think it's not going to happen to me. Well,
Mhm.
the people it does happen to also thought it was never going to happen to them. So
Exactly.
you can ignore the possibility, or you can be prepared for the possibility, because those two things are interchangeable.
Right.
I have a question. What are some of the strategies we could use to prevent cybercrime on our social media accounts or Gmail or any of the websites we use?
Well, I think a good one, and I know Cynthia kind of touched on it because of her, her professional experience. Be careful the sites you're going on to, right? Making sure that you're going on sites that you feel confident are doing best practices to keep their interactions, whether it's a chat, whether it's a business transaction, so a money transaction, any place that is going to take your information. Make sure that you're using reputable sites. And you want to make sure, like an easy little tip is to make sure that the beginning of the URL is HTTPS, and the S stands for security. If there's no S, it means that they do not have a security feature within their platform or their site. And that can be a concern, especially if they're trying to do transactions. As far as social media, this is a tough one because, again, back when I used to do in-person presentations in schools, there's such a drive for having lots of followers and having lots of engagement, and I want as many people following me as possible, when the fact of the matter is that's not a good thing. I consider myself an old lady. I don't know 200 people that I would want to have follow me on social media. I don't want to share content with everybody, whether it's family occasions or my personal views on things. So we need to be a little more selective as to who is following us and how many people we allow to follow us, and the privacy settings that we have on our social media platforms, because it's really easy. Instagram does an update on their platform, and suddenly all your security gets knocked out. We'll go back in and reset it and make your account private again, and don't accept everybody who is asking to friend or like your accounts. Frankly, they're not who they say they are. There's a lot of, that's where the pervs are. That's where the perverts are hanging out. They're not going to the park or hanging out at the local places that you would be in person. They're waiting for people online, because that's where most of us are. That's where we're in engagement, right? So being careful who we're allowing to see the content we put up. And that's not to say that you can't put up what you want to put up. If you don't care who's following you, then you're going to have to be aware that some of your photos could be problematic, and you could be getting DMs from people asking for really, inappropriate photos, or even better, sending you inappropriate photos. And that was a conversation I used to have in the classroom, where I would say, they'd be shocked because I'd talk about, sexting and human trafficking and grooming for sex acts. Well, let me tell you, I guarantee that everybody who has a social media platform has had some kind of engagement, and they kind of would glaze over, like, what's she talking about, crazy old lady? And I would say, how many of you have received either a request for an inappropriate image, so you take a photo and send to them, or they've sent you an inappropriate photo? And every person in that classroom who had social media put their hand up. They had all been approached either to take a photo or to receive a photo. So they already knew what I was talking about. They just weren't making that connection that the person who's asking for that could be a pedophile, could be generating child pornography. And that's the connection we have to remember, that having large volumes of followers means that you've got the greater chance of having those types of individuals accessing your information with your permission. Sorry, that was a really long answer. I apologize for
I
that.
agree. That was very informative, because as a blogger and YouTuber, I receive like tons of optimization messages every day, and I always delete them right away, because I don't think so that I'm going to be asking someone to help me get these many followers. If I want followers, I want to get them organically. So I agree with you that don't follow everyone and don't add everyone. I agree with that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Whew. A lot of good questions. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like thank you very much. You were able to help us a lot, and we learned a lot from you, Crime Stoppers. Because of you, we were able to learn a lot about how we can, make the community a safer place for everyone. And thank you very much once again for supporting us and coming out to this session.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And again, I encourage you to check out your local Crime Stoppers program. Check us out at Ontario or Canada, and we'd glad to have you connect with your programs.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And if anyone else has any further questions after this session, please send it over to us at Youth for Change, and we can always forward it to Sarah if there's anything else. So thank you.
And yeah, I mean, some couple of things to add on to what Sarah said. Just more about like some of the experiences online, right? Like obviously there are many things on social media, and it's really hard to differentiate from someone who's doing, who has bad intention. But at the same time, being victims of many of these issues can cause cyberbullying, especially being called names and threats, threatened digitally. And obviously, being unaware of all these issues, gives them more liberty to exploit you online, and that in turn escalates mental stress. And especially when you don't have the support or the help, it further escalates mental struggle and adversities. And I feel like, having that support in the community, like obviously, like what Sarah said, going through Crime Stoppers and having that support and getting involved in everything allows you to cope with many of the hardships that you might face online, and to counter and retaliate against cyberbullying, and just your experiences online in social media. Next one, yeah. So yeah, one thing that I would like to also talk about is some of the some things about how youth really don't know the secrets behind how certain platforms work, like social media or certain companies, and how certain companies, they monetize your data, right? Their business model aggregates, your personal information, tracks your movements digitally, or to a certain extent physically, where they find out what you like, your preferences, what you're what you're interested in, and like what products you're interested in, based on your discussions and your searches online. And they essentially target you with free ads and services, and they give you ads with products that you're more inclined towards buying, and essentially that's how they generate the revenue. But at the same time, giving our personal information, like when you're browsing online, in exchange for free email, free folder services, brings upon other cyber crimes, like we discussed previously. So this lack of knowledge and awareness that people have, and even though they know the ramifications and consequences of giving their information for these free services, gives companies more liberty. And in fact, there was a study that was done in 2004 by the BBC News, where 70% of the people actually gave their computer passwords for chocolate bars. Now that sounds a bit interesting, just because even though people don't really like understand that, like the importance of their own information, and they're willing to give their computer passwords for a chocolate bar, right? So that really shows how these poor choices, that gives more companies more liberty to manipulate us, spread false information, indoctrinate us with false things, and getting us to believe in the wrong information. And I feel like those poor choices, what gives many of these companies more liberty to manipulate us, and once again that brings upon more opportunities for cybercrimes to take place. So yeah, so just some things that we can do to be safe on the internet. This is an excellent YouTube video that I would like to show you, that really shows how when you're on social media and what you're doing online, these are some ways that that we can be safe. And this has been previously covered by Sarah as well, so this would be like a digital representation of what we're going to go to.
The internet is a great place to do research for school, share pictures with friends, play video games, or check out the latest trending videos. But it's important to remember that there are billions of people who access the internet, and not everyone has good intentions when doing so. You should think carefully before you share personal information, pictures, or videos on the internet, even if you think it is private. Nothing on the internet is completely private. It's a good rule of thumb not to put up anything that could embarrass you later. If you wouldn't want your grandmother to see it, then don't post it. And don't share private information with people you don't know. Trust your instincts. If someone approaches you online and makes you feel uncomfortable or in danger, stop communication with them immediately. and tell a parent or another trusted adult. It's best not to meet in person someone you've only met online, even if you've been communicating with them for a long time. They may not be who they have told you they are, and it could be dangerous. If you do decide to meet someone from online, it's best to meet them in a public place and to not go alone. Always take a friend along just to be safe, and let someone else know exactly where you are going and who you are going to meet. Bullying someone online through email, social media, text messaging, or any other website or app is called cyberbullying and is still a form of bullying. It's often better to block, delete, or try to ignore bullying messages than to respond to them. If that doesn't work, getting help from a parent, school counselor, or another trusted adult might be a good idea. That's especially true if the cyberbullying contains threats. Remember to always keep your personal information private. Check your privacy settings to make sure that only your friends can see what you post. And never, ever share your passwords with anyone else. The internet could be a wonderful place to explore. Just remember to stay safe while doing it. Oh, what was it? My dog's birthday. Shoot, okay, that didn't work. Oh, I know. Last 4 digits of my cell number. Okay, that wasn't it. That might take a while. Until next time, don't forget to visit me at amaze.org or go to my YouTube channel to watch more. Bye!
So that summarizes, a lot of things that we discussed. Yeah, but like something that we can also practice is, our daily hygiene. Just like, brushing your teeth, eating food. Some things that we can do on a computer would be, to clean your computer often, have an antivirus. Make sure that you're protected by an antivirus, and think critically of what is happening around you. Like like we mentioned, when you're on social media or when you're on other platforms, know what is happening, know when to respond, know how to respond, and seek advice. And I feel like those are the biggest things that you can do to to not be victims of many of these crimes and frauds online. And obviously be politically active as well. Support your community, support everyone who's candidates or people that support the digital problem. They see the how the digital world, it could pose many threats in the future. And in terms of some technical things that you could also follow would be to use a virtual private network. It's a VPN that is separate from your your internet providers. Stuff like NordVPN, ExpressVPN. It allows you to browse safely online, and it doesn't let your personal information get out there and like accessible to many people who are using the same network like you. So it allows you to be more safer. And last but not least, volunteer and educate others. The elderly, especially, they could be not as experienced with using platforms online. So educate them about some ways, like we said, educate them on how to differentiate between a scam or something that's legitimate. Allow the more aware people are, the safer we'll all be. So I feel like that is something that we should all do, right? Educate others and raise awareness on this topic. So any help, reach out to us for Youth for Change. We're always there for you guys. So reach out for any help, and obviously reach out to Crime Stoppers. They're always there for you guys. So get involved and just get the community to be safer. And if you're experiencing cyberbullying, obviously Bullying Canada will be an excellent source. The number is written down here below. And if any cybercrime and any problems, you can also visit the Canadian Center for Cybersecurity. But if you don't want to be involved with police or anything, Crime Stoppers once again, would be an excellent place where to go.
Thank you, Rijin and Sarah. Once again, this session was extremely informative, and I'm sure our audience has really benefited from all the information that you gave. And I know, of course, not being able to learn this through school or other resources. So for me personally, this was very informative. So thank you once again. And Sarah, we just want to extend our sincerest gratitude from all of my colleagues here at Youth for Change for coming out today and sharing your time with us. So thank you so much. And I'm sure everyone will really take at least a few points of information from this session home with them. And please do share with your family and friends too. All right, so I think that basically wraps up our session for today. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we really appreciate your time as always. Today was our 5th session, and next week we'll be moving on to our 6th session. It's hard to believe that, you know, we're already halfway through, but next week we will be speaking about personal finance and investing tips, and really the importance of youth taking control of their finances so that they can attain financial freedom in the future. So we will be joined by a senior manager at TD for all of her insights and expertise. So please stay tuned, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Sarah.